My hands are frozen. My face too. But I'm glad it's here. So there's one padded there and there's two in the back. Let's pause here. Before receiving our complete electric propulsion system, we honestly almost gave up. True story. At first, we were looking for a hybrid solution, not an electric one. Our shopping experience was extremely frustrating, but everything changed when we heard about that one guy that created his own company while sailing the Pacific Ocean without any diesel on board. We thought that doing an interview with him would be the best way to introduce our complete propulsion system. And even if you're a die-hard diesel fan or you were already looking for a hybrid electric solution, we got you covered. We will shatter all belief and you will understand why we didn't give up. Make sure to stick around after the interview to learn what will be our first destination. This video will make you save time, money, and unwanted stress. If you're new to our channel, this is who we are. Hi, we're Jen and Pierre, a Canadian couple originally from Quebec, and we are currently building our custom 37 feet expedition sailboat. We found a forgotten rusty hull a few years ago and named her Wild Raven. She'll be an all-electric, Arctic-ready, and one-of-a-kind. Launching in 2026, welcome to sailing Wild Raven. Without further ado, here's the interview. Thank you very much, Jack, for taking the time to talk with us. We know that you're a very busy man. We first heard about your company, Powerflow Marine, through a podcast, the Offshore Sailing and Cruising podcast. You did an interview, and a great interview, by the way. And so you said a lot of things at that time that truly resonated with us.
Yeah.
So we did experience kind of the same frustration you went through while trying to find your own propulsion system. And
Right.
on the other end, all your sailing adventure and voyage into the Pacific just sold us on the fact that we could totally go electric and make it work,
Yeah.
even with our type of sailing plan. So maybe we could start with what made you go electric in the first place and also why you founded your own company.
Yeah, so I started this mainly because I was tired of wrenching on my diesel. I was a BMW technician for years, so I know how to fix things, but it just became a constant battle. I was putting so many labor hours instead of enjoying my anchorage and cruising around Vancouver Island. I was upside down in the engine bilge, putting the transmission back on for the fourth time. I just had so many issues with the Kubota that we also always had this idea of the saying, oh, well, the technology is not there. We'll just wait when technology is better. But the more I started looking into what that actually meant, that idea fell flat. I mean, batteries are so much better these days. They have, you know, I can't even X amount with 5 times X what a lead acid has these days. And we can use so much more of the energy in the Life PO4 battery. That kind of technology, yes, it might progress, but we're with Life PO4 chemistry, and that's how it's going to be for the foreseeable future. If miraculously we have a solid state battery that is the same price, people might go that way. But that technology is the one that's moving. It's the electric motors and the displays and the controllers. All of those have been standardized for years. I mean, we had electric cars before we had gas cars, and that shift just happened. So the change of technology is purely in the battery storage sector. So to propel the boat is nothing new. But I started my own business as you know out of desire to have my own boat converted. Um, I was always told I was going to need to go 72 volts or 96 volts, or I would need this massive battery bank, or I had to have a generator for our 30,000 pound Passport 42. And I just didn't think that was right. I couldn't get a straight answer out of anybody on what is the math, what is the figures. Um, so when I designed all of this, it was, under well, it's just working on paper. When we splashed the boat in Mexico, it was like kind of nerve-wracking to see were we actually going to be able to move at 5 knots and not use 300 amps, but we only use 5 kW to move at 5 knots.
Yeah.
Um, so and that's without any solar offset or anything. So um, we motored across the Sea of Cortez, all the way over to the Baja side at night at 4 knots, and we got there with 53% battery left.
Oh, wow,
And
that's good.
we
At
had,
night.
yeah,
So
yeah,
nothing was charging at that time.
nothing was charging. A cool story about that: we were motoring slowly, and it's nearly silent. You can hear the prop wash more than anything. And I heard this whoosh, 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 and I couldn't see any lights on the horizon. And then all of a sudden, I see a container ship pop out from behind an island, and I could hear its engine and prop because my diesel wasn't running, and I could. It was just eerie. I've never heard that at night in no wind because you're always motoring with the diesel.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was out of the need for my own boat, and then I realized that there isn't the kind of honest marketing. Um, the market wants this, but it's all priced out of the atmosphere, or it is dirt cheap kit like where people can't have a well designed, good looking, uh, full packaged product.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like exactly what we experienced before finding about you and your company. Like we had price that was up to the roof. Like
Like
it's
$100,000 turn your boat.
Yeah, easy.
That's
Yeah,
yeah,
sense. I mean, $100,000.
and you're still missing
Yeah,
parts.
yeah. And they
Yeah, at
don't
that
warranty
price.
also. They don't even give you the how far you're going to be able to navigate or what. They just say, no, this is the package. And you take it or you leave it. And that
Yeah.
that
yeah,
I was wrong.
Yeah, and on the other end, also some company just ghosted us.
Yeah.
Like you have that initial kind of contact.
yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
They like it seems like they don't
yeah.
want your business. So you wonder if I go with that company, what kind of customer service I'm going
Yeah.
to have if something happens. So
Right. Yeah,
we
I mean, I went through that for 11 months. I would have a good initial contact with somebody, and then I would ask up to 3 questions, and then they would just drop off the face of the earth. And they had to realize, I need to make sure that this is actually going to work for a $50,000 investment. So yeah, I was in the same boat as you guys. So I really tried to make sure that I answer emails and I answer phone calls and manufacture motors. So.
You did good. You're doing really good at it.
yeah,
I'm telling you, it's
yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for those that's watching right now, Jack is awesome.
Yeah.
So
Might
Thank
even be
you.
able to call him at 2 in the morning. No, midnight. That's
no.
right.
Yeah, midnight. Yeah.
Maybe also you could share some experience you had in the Pacific. I think there's a one story you mentioned on that interview when you were in the doldrum, I believe, and you had a few days that you had to motor and you were able to sustain it.
Yeah, yeah. So first we were sailing from La Cruz, Mexico to the Marquesas was the goal. And we had a 23-day passage. We have such a large battery bank that we were one day out of the anchorage in La Cruz and the batteries were at 100%. So we had the water maker on. We turned the air conditioning on in the afternoons to take naps down below to keep Fathom, our cat, happy. Um, and we had all the power in the world. I mean, regen was in float mode while we were sailing, and then we got to the doldrums, and we had that 648 amp hours of capacity to use. So we kept the main up just for little stability rocking, but we basically motored for 5 days, and we motored with just the sun and the solar during the day. And it's kind of interesting. The doldrums, it kept on moving. That pressure system kept on moving, so it kind of just extended our doldrums motoring. We tried to do the 90-degree tactic and whatnot. But there was also a countercurrent. So we had around a knot and a half current going from south to north, which wasn't what we planned on. But we can motor flat, calm water, no current at around 3 knots with only solar. When we were going in the doldrums, it was nearly that, just slightly less during the day. And then at night, we would just reduce our RPMs to around 20 amps, and we would basically hold position or get around a knot or two of headway. So we did that off and on for 5 days, and we got out of the doldrums with 8% battery left. So that was the lowest we ever drew the battery down. Once we were sailing, we had regen, and then we had the sun to charge us back up. and we were fully charged back into float mode and the air conditioning on within 3 days after that.
That's
Um,
impressive.
What's your battery bank?
it's the same as yours. So the 648,
Yeah.
three of the 11 kilowatt hour batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
So we got to the Marquesas with 98% battery. The air conditioning was on. We were happy. We made water the whole time. We had tons of power.
Yeah.
Now, we did it slowly. We weren't motoring at 5 knots, and some other people got through the doldrums in 2.5 days because of that. But it wasn't unbearable. I mean, it was part of the experience. And I did this without the DC generator to prove a point and to prove to myself and to be able to have that story to show that it is possible. So I did some data collection over that past year that we were sailing, and we only had an average um, battery state of charge of 85% over the past year. So we barely, consumed our whole battery bank. I mean, I never saw like that time we went across the Sea of Cortez in the 50s. We were never in like the 20 or 10% range. Going through the doldrums was the first time we got down to 8%. Um, but we just have a lot of battery bank and recharge capability because of the solar panels.
How much solar panels do you have? Or
So for the 470s,
Okay.
I think we sent you three.
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so for the 470s would get us around 35 amps during peak sun. And that's what we needed to move around that 3 knots.
Crazy. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
going, I remember also like going through the atolls, you had the power to go through.
Oh yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
bunch of current there. It,
Yeah. I mean, when we were doing testing in San Carlos in Mexico, I was going full throttle in the bay, and Sonia's up on the bow looking back at me, going, "Why are we going so fast?" But she's talking to me in a normal speaking voice, and we're breaking hull speed. We're going, six, or I'm sorry, 7.3, 7.4, just with our, 22 kW electric propulsion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is a combination of having the correct prop,
Yeah.
and having the properly sized motor.
Yeah.
And that's where our boat report comes in, because I wouldn't want to just sell anybody any motor and then have you have a uncalibrated motor that's not going to move the boat correctly, because that makes all of us look bad. So it's a balance.
yeah, it is. Well, you just mentioned the bolt report, so maybe we can go through that.
Yeah, for sure. So I use a calculator based on some industry standard calculations for hull speed and what power is going to be needed to move the boat. So I take your displacement and the length of your water line, and then we can see how many kWs are going to be needed for a speed range. So I make sure that we can get you to hull speed for emergency stuff, and then I look at what the 5 knot average or whatever your requested cruising speed is. And then based on that usage, we size it up to the motor, and then the battery bank is built to make sure that you can achieve your motoring goals. And we do that all, no solar, no, any kind of power source added to that, just so you can see what is electric only. And then that'll give us an idea of whether it's the 17 kW or the 22 kW motor. And then we have a smaller 100 amp hour battery or a larger, now 258 amp hour. So the boat report's a nice PDF that gives you a lot of information with some specs and some little light reading.
Yeah.
Light reading.
So everyone can understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have some charts to back up what we say the motor can do.
And when we buy your system, it comes complete. It's not one part there, one part there. Everything comes with it.
Yeah, and I wanted to improve what the industry was doing with their throttles and the display.
Yeah.
I also wanted a package that you were proud to open up the engine bay and show off the motor system. It wasn't just a bunch of conduit wire and just a pile of stuff. So there's some time spent to make it look good as well. But what comes with the motor is the Lavorsi throttle and our display. The cooling unit comes included in the price of the G22. So that's a bulkhead mounted heat exchanger with pumps. So you take seawater and then it cools down the coolant for the liquid cooled motor and the controllers. And then I send you a sheet to have measurements made for your boat. So we have a wiring diagram sheet that you can take all your legs of the wiring diagram, and then I make a custom wiring harness. So you basically get a full-blown package that you don't have to do any customization at the boat. It's as much as I can do at the shop before I send it out. That's the goal.
That was
Yeah.
great. That was a plug-in system is by far the easiest way because some people out there are not mechanically inclined or not as mechanically inclined. So it's easy to read A into A and B into B.
Right.
All
Yeah,
right.
right, right. And when we sell our batteries, each battery needs its own fuse and a switching contactor. With the 48 volts, there are a lot of battery switches that say they can do 48 volts, but it is the max voltage. We actually operate at 56 volts. So I put together a battery control kit, which is the fuse block, and a switching contactor, and that gets sold with every battery as well. So we're just adding on to that, complete package deal.
And when we first contacted you, we were looking for something either electric or hybrid. Actually, we were going to go hybrid at first.
We had so much problem. We had the same problem that you had. We talked to a lot of a company that are making motor, and then we had the motor, and then we tried to talk to our company. Where do you get the controller? Where do you get the throttle? Where do you get the battery? Where everybody was going back and forth. Nobody was giving us a true answer. And if we didn't get a good contact with somebody, it would be uh, being
Ghosted. Yeah.
ghosted or stupid price. This for us was a year of frustration. So when we talked to you, we explained very simple. What we want is we want to get rid of our diesel motor. That's the first thing we want to go. Our goal was to be able to be electric, fully electric, a simple system, cost efficient, and a system that we can take wherever we want to go. So most people, when they're talking about hybrid or electrical, the north is out of the question. Some that even told us that salt water and electric, it's not going to work. So you're wasting your time, wasting money.
Yeah.
So those were the basic question we had for you. You were able to answer all those questions by having a one kit system.
Yeah, so basically I took your boat specs and found that the G22 is going to be a perfect fit. And then since you had an empty playing field to start with, it was relatively easy to design a system that could be expanded in the future. So, we wanted to put as much battery capacity in as possible, and using the larger form factor batteries was definitely the way to go. So we chose three of the 11 kilowatt hour batteries, and those fit nicely a little bit further forward in the vessel, so everything wasn't packed aft and ruining a bunch of balance. So that was a cool feature. Um, and then we were able to size that Brunton's prop to be able to use regen, because if you are sailing overnight, you want to be able to maintain your battery voltage or gain as much as you can. Um, so we added the solar panels, the Maxion 470 panels, the Brunton's prop, three of the 11 kilowatt hour batteries, and the G22. And with the intention of being able to expand it with one of our DC generators after you guys had a season of sailing, a bit of shakedown, and you were planning for that generator as where it would live eventually, but you didn't need it right off the bat. That's where the battery capacity was totally adequate. And then the solar is going to still work in high latitudes in the summertime. It's going to offset the motoring. Um, and then we went a little bit step further, and I helped you design a Victron setup. So we wanted to put in the correctly matched inverter charger, so you could have all of your appliances ran. You wanted to be able to run the welder when you needed. So we sized that. We put in the MPPTs. We put in the distribution unit and all of the controls and features that Victron adds to that system. So it wasn't just Power Flow Marine; it expanded into the whole sphere of the boat.
For us, it was the best thing. It was the easiest way because now you can see with the drawing where the parts goes. Just have
Yeah,
to finalize the length of the cable. That's about it.
yeah.
Mhm.
And initially, there were some worries or some checking on facts. You did mention the salt water and all that kind of stuff, but we use IP.8 or higher rated motors. They're all liquid cooled. We didn't want to use anything that could have that corrosion potential by using an air cooled motor. Everything is as sealed up and reliable as possible.
Okay.
And then for your recharging, if you don't have tons of solar, while you are sailing, that Brunton's EcoStar prop pitches for RPM. So in combination with our adjustable regen, the faster you're sailing, the more power you can produce.
Yeah.
So if you're sailing at 4 knots, you'll turn the regen off or down very low. So the prop is free spinning. And if it's off, then the prop actually feathers and slipstreams.
Yeah.
So when we were sailing on our passage, that first 23-day voyage, we had an average of 7 kWh a day just from regen. And that was with a slow boat speed of 5.4.
Wow.
So, as at a faster pace, we could have made more power, or catamarans, they're way faster than that. The adjustable regen is a really nice function to remake the power that you use to get in and out of the anchorage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Any other product you have in mind that you want to develop? Or I know there's the DC generator you just mentioned.
Yeah, there are a lot of products in the works.
Oh.
We have expanded our into a sail drive offering. So we have sail drives for the European boats and the catamarans. So that's 17 and 22. And then we have the 17 kW, which is a three-phase geared motor. The 22 is your motor. It's called the G22. And then three different types of DC generators. The DC generator is going to be great to make a series hybrid propulsion. So we'll rely on the electric motor first, and we'll use all of the energy through the propulsion bank for motoring, obviously, but also, running your welders or running the air conditioning unit or dive compressors, just because we have a massive battery bank to do so. But then the remotely mounted generator gets rid of having a charger mounted on the wall, and then we rely on the charge efficiency of that charger. And now the DC generator makes direct current, 48 volts, right into the battery bank.
So we won't need a big 5K or 10K inverter.
The inverter will do the house loads, but
Okay.
you won't be relying on that just to charge it, because a 100 amp charger is going to get warm, it's going to lose its efficiencies, and then you're limited to that 100 amps.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, our smallest generator is going to make 115 amps. The next size up is 242 amps,
Wow.
and the next size up is in the 300s. So we don't have chargers that are in this one case, in this one box, that can make that kind of power. So that's my baby. That's a growing product that I have lots of interest in, and I weld my own stainless case, and I have isolation mounts for the motor, and then also the actual case itself. And yeah, it's a unique PowerFlow Marine DC diesel generator.
Water
That's so
cooled.
cool.
Water cooled.
Yeah, it's a Yanmar water-cooled base.
Okay.
So we could still use the through hull that you would already have for the main propulsion. And then we have that cooling unit that I mentioned before, cools the controllers.
Okay.
So all that, your fully rounded system is going to be able to use all the same functions.
When are we expecting it?
End of this month. End of
Oh.
this month, I have 2 orders in right now. But yeah, it's the production queue is quickly filling up. So I have a lead time of at least 3 months right now.
Okay.
So
That's
So
good.
people, hurry up.
yeah, I mean it's like I'm a one-man show. So
Yeah.
as fast as I can weld and fast as I can crimp wires is how fast people get their motor systems.
That's pretty good. Hey, do you need somebody out there I can move over and do some
Yeah,
work for you?
I know you do. I know you like the welding. Yeah.
That's great.
All right. Well, what's the best way to contact you?
Our website is powerflowmarine.com, and that's where you'll get the boat report link. You could also schedule a meeting, a consulting meeting, and then we're also on Instagram at powerflowmarine.
Now that you know everything about our electric propulsion system, it's time to tell you what will be our first destination.
We hope to spend the first winter in the Great Lake. The reason is very simple. We want to make sure that everything works perfectly before we go. We want to make sure that the heating system is good enough, the hot water, everything, all the system on the boat can react properly to cold weather, because when this is all done, we want to go Labrador, we want to go up north, we want to go to north of the Norway to Svalbard. So in order to do that, the boat has to be in perfect shape for cold weather, insulated, and all the system working properly.
What do you think about our first destination? Let us know in the comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to follow us on our future epic adventure. Ciao!